I'll start. Things are going well here. Still at Baker Tilly, getting outside, enjoying this COVID world with some professional golf and personal golf. Kids are doing good to go, and work continues to be busy. I've been to the office a whopping 2 times in the last year and a half, so picking something up and dropping something off. So there we go. All right, how about Dwayne? You're up next.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so things are going well. I mean, we're extremely busy. Our emergency center at the hospital, for example, is hitting record numbers that we haven't seen before, and also our inpatient days. I was telling the folks earlier that COVID cases in November spiked at about 90 at Methodist, and then it dropped down to 3, and now we're back up to 18. So a lot of PPE stuff, a lot of supply chain disruption that's impacting things at times, but generally we're working through it, and we're extremely busy. And I'm in and out of the office, in and out of the hospital, so it just depends, and at home too. So
yeah. Kurt?
Having a great summer. Just got back from 2 weeks hiking in California in the Sierras, and had a great time doing that. Knee deep in putting a couple hundred solar panels on a commercial building, so that's good. And having a great summer.
Oh, awesome. Tony?
Morning, all. Yeah, we're hanging together. We've had a couple of weekend trips, and on the family side, things are good. The girls are getting geared up to start a new school, though, at Benilde St. Margaret this fall. So there's a little bit of tension in the house about some changes into a new and bigger school. On the work front, Ryan is just chugging along. We've been on the luckier side of the client list. Coming out of this type of economic turbulence, we have our biggest clients are Target, Kroger, and Amazon. And if you have seen kind of what's happened in grocery and general merchandise and online retailing, it's been really accelerated, and a lot of our development projects have been going exceptionally well as well. So I'm knocking on wood, but we've been experiencing some heavy growth through all of this, and we expect that to continue. So team size has grown, volume and profits have grown, and try to manage that additional workload while going in and out of formats has been a bit of a bear. So if it looks like I've been losing my hair, you are correct. It is going the opposite direction. Ryan, from an overall occupancy of office perspective, we've been a critical industry, so we've never closed. We've also asked all non-essential people if you can work from home, we've asked that people work from home. And like I think Dwayne was talking about earlier, we've kind of slid it back continually, and we're going to slide it back again based on what's been happening here. So we're hopeful that people make smart decisions regarding their own bodies and healthcare, and we are hopeful that the government puts forward more direct requirements. And because we have offices across the country, we're trying to create one COVID policy that balances the whole, and that's just been really hard for us because our offices in Florida and Texas are very different from our offices in Minneapolis and Seattle from an overall health and habits and all the other things you can imagine on that end. So that's what I got. You can take
Awesome.
it back.
Yeah. Jim, how about you?
All right, good morning. Get myself unmuted here. Well, I've been doing well, trying to navigate COVID and building this project. It's been a challenge. I'm in the office today. I've been starting to come back to the office. Both James and I are here in a big vacant spot, so most people are working from home, except for our field crew. They're still out there working, but it's been a challenge, and so far we haven't necessarily been hit with verifiable claims, I'll put it that way, from the contractors and suppliers, but there's a lot of talk out there. I'm surprised we haven't been hit harder with materials. We'll probably see that more in the systems contract as they start ramping up. But been able to navigate so far. I'll be talking about some challenges here outside of COVID, but On a personal level, doing good. Was out in Wyoming, Montana, doing some biking myself and doing my annual thing. I'm from Wyoming, so I try to get back there every year. And getting set for my son to go out to Colorado to school here. So things are a little stressful leaving the nest type thing here. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Yeah, good luck with that. All the
Thank you.
best. Sophia?
Sure. So, the outreach team is a very public team out and about. And so we had this nice brief period where we got to be unmasked outside doing things, starting to set up in-person meetings, and obviously backpedaling that just a little bit. We still have the opportunity to do many of our in-person kind of tours outside. My son just made appearance in the background, is about to start kindergarten, so getting him set up for that, and kind of winding down the summer. I also got to do a bunch of hiking and things like that, so that was nice.
Awesome. Dan?
Good morning, everyone. We've had a pretty good summer here. On the personal note, my two girls are going to be a freshman and junior in high school, and they both are fast pitch softball players. So we spent a lot of time on the softball fields this summer, just about every weekend, and some double headers on the weeknights. And we're able to escape a couple of weekends during the summer to get down to the cabin. But we've had a pretty good summer, and everybody's been healthy in our family. On the work side, we've been extremely busy. The three main clients that we're dealing with right now are in education, healthcare, and the financial side of things. And our financial client has been acquiring some other additional credit unions and growing pretty rapidly that way. On the education side, the school project we have, it's a remodel and addition going on right now. And we're scrambling as fast as we can to get things done before the kids come back to school. But I think they're going to have to make some adjustments on that. And our healthcare client, they're in the mental health and counseling type of business, and they've acquired a second building and are growing pretty fast, as you can imagine, through this COVID phase. So we've been pretty busy in that sense and pretty lucky.
Oh, that's awesome, Dan. Congrats. Gary?
Yeah, my family's doing well. My daughter just started pharmacy school at the University of Minnesota on Monday. And my oldest daughter is down in Chicago, and she starts at the University of Chicago in their evening MBA program. And she's a UX designer for websites and so forth. And she's doing really well. She graduated from Michigan State, the other one from Montana State. I'm at Star Bank now in Eden Prairie. My wife, it was in the paper a while ago, she left after 32 years of being at Wells Fargo. She left and went over to Bell Bank. And so the kind of banking along, and kids are doing great in school. So
some good transition. Got it. Congrats on the daughter. James?
Yep. Good morning. Yeah, I have a son who is entering his senior year of high school. So for those of you who are familiar with that, getting him ready for that, getting him ready and starting to think about conversations. We're already having conversations about what follows. And was able to achieve a nice goal this past summer. Many of you know I lived in Hawaii for years and hadn't been back there for many years. And so I wanted, before my kid jumps the nest, I wanted to be sure I could take him back there one more time where he was born. And we're able to do that in July. We were able to go for 3 weeks. It was just a really nice time on a lot of levels. So it was all good.
Oh, awesome. Let's see. Dave Pellner, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see your faces. Yeah, it's been interesting. The Pellner Brood. Both our kids are out of college. I had one of mine graduate and through this COVID situation, which was interesting. But it's just my wife and I in our British lab at home. Everything's going great. On the work front, dealing with the same issues that all of you have been dealing with. We've been back to the office on a volunteer basis for over a year now. So I'm pretty much been officing in our Minnetonka campus, and it's been going well. We put obviously a ton of precautions in place, as creating a healthy and safe environment for our people, but again, strictly voluntary. We have not set a return to office specific target date. We were contemplating here a return right after Labor Day, but given the Delta variant uptick, we've chosen to just kind of lay off of that. Similar, I think, to what Dwayne was speaking about, and let's just see where this all leads, and we'll respond accordingly. From a business perspective, everything just continues to be humming along with United Health Group. No, just managing our way through this whole crisis and pandemic, and everything's going well in that regards. And as it relates to kind of our real estate related situation, we're probably in the same boat that all of you are in, is evaluating kind of what is this going to look like when things start to level out and come back to some sense of normality. We're anticipating that there'll be, some level of real estate rationalization to be able to respond to kind of the new ways of working, and how are we, building our workplaces to be able to support that. But all in all, that's a work in progress, and again, it's ever evolving, because this is a situation that's really tough to get your thumb on, right? So all in all, everything's good. Great to be back with all of you.
Oh, great. That's awesome, Dave. There's two people I do not know, but Amber, are you open to going next?
Sure. My name is Amber. I'm a senior at McAllister College, and I'm interning as community outreach / communications intern with Metro Transit this summer. So that's been pretty exciting. Working closely with Sophia and Trevor and David Davies, and doing a lot of work on construction updates and a lot of other things. And other than internship, I'm just doing a lot of rehab. I'm returning from an ACL surgery, so that's been exciting. But it's just been a good summer overall.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Amber. And Trevor.
I don't think Trevor can actually talk. He wrote me a text and said that he doesn't have a mic or camera on his computer where he's actually working. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate everyone's indulgence. Hopefully, have I missed anybody? Appreciate the indulgence. I always think it's important to know people in these settings a little bit, maybe professionally at a minimum, and some personally too. Right? It helps create some good bond and understand why we're here and how we're representing Southwest. I know there's I guess, Dan, if you're okay, just obviously calling the meeting to order according to the agenda, the chair's update. I don't think there's really anything, except there's going to be the next quarter management committee meeting is on September 1st. Dan, anything that you've got?
No, I don't think I have anything to add to that.
So with that, Jim, Sophia, James, I think we're going to hand it off to you. Thank you.
All right. So I think I'm leading off, aren't I, James, for this?
Yep. I'm
okay.
Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Well, I thought that, since we haven't met in some time, we've been out in the news quite a bit this year with our construction schedule and some challenges we've had. And some of you may be dialed into this. I know, Dan, you've probably seen this. Will, you've probably seen this presentation. But I wanted to get everybody dialed in, so it might be repetitive for some, but I wanted to talk about some construction challenges. First, I want to say that for civil construction, in general, things are going pretty well. If you go out on the alignment, you'll see there's a lot of work being done. And we're about 50% done with civil construction overall with the 14.5 miles. But we have some challenges in the east end, and I'll talk about those. It really revolves around quarter protection wall, which we've talked about in the past, and secant wall with the Kenilworth corridor tunnel. So for the corridor protection wall, you can see it's depicted over in the east end, essentially from Bryn Mawr over to just a little bit east of 94 as we cross under that highway. This was a requirement by BNSF. We always knew about this, and at the time we were going out for civil construction bids, we were still going through environmental clearance, and we made the decision along with the county and FTA to proceed with the bidding, knowing that this would have to be added as a change order. And so we, once we got the contractor on board, we started having discussions, and the contractor was like, well, wait a minute, that's a lot of work. We got to figure out how that's going to fit into our scheme of things. And it took us well over a year to just kind of get negotiating in terms of how this is actually going to be done. So it took quite a long time to get things settled down and the negotiations on the number. And you probably saw in the news some time ago about the change order. I think it was earlier this spring. Um, this change order is upward about $90 million. It's pretty expensive. We had planned around $25 million for this, and realizing that wasn't a full estimate at the time because the plans weren't quite finalized with approvals from BNSF. And we now do have a change order in place and the contractor is doing work. But as you look at this 14 and a half miles, we have it divvied up in 16 work segments. And within those segments, we have 6 completion milestones that are spread throughout the 14 and a half miles. And because this quarter protection wall is going to cause some challenges with our schedule, basically we're going to be late. It affects other areas of the alignment because there are contractual ties from a milestone perspective, milestone completion perspective, that affect the west end and some of the middle parts. The same thing goes for the Kenilworth Tunnel. There's some contractual milestone date ties to other parts of the project. So I don't know if you appreciate the word float, but essentially the areas out west in the middle, because of those 2 challenges out east, the contractor has some float to be able to get those done at a time, because it's all on us right now in terms of a schedule. That is changing now that we have the quarter protection wall in place. We have a date certain for that to be done, and we're working on the Kenilworth Tunnel. That's probably our biggest tackle right now, to figure out how the secant wall is going to affect the construction of the tunnel, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So it's just kind of a high level for the secant wall, and I have a map showing where this is and all that, but it's really due to unforeseen conditions, and I'll talk about that when I get to some cross sections here. But let's just say this affects the civil construction schedule, but it also affects our systems schedule, because they're a follow-on contractor that need to do the work out in the field once civil is done, and then ultimately affects our revenue service. So James, if you could advance the next slide there. So this is kind of where we are right now in terms of efforts. We've, as I indicated, we have a change order in place for the wall, the protection wall. That's work is underway. The Kenilworth Tunnel, we've had some challenges with some sheet separation, and on the railroad side, we're just starting this week to do some grouting. We do have a change order in place. That's what that completed means, and so we have a subcontractor out doing that work starting this week. We have several locations where, as the contractor was pressing in the sheets, we had some obstructions, and we found that in the first initial cell that we were building for the tunnel, we had some separation, and some water and sand was coming into the excavation area from under the railroad, causing some settlement, and that's not a good thing. So we took a pause and took a look to see what we could do, and we decided that the best remedy was to get a grouting program in place outside of the excavation next to the sheets where we had those obstructions, so we could prevent any soil and water migration into the excavation to avoid that settlement. So that getting underway. The secant wall, we're just about to execute a change order on that. I'm going through board approvals on that item as well. And there's also things related to the sheet installation themselves, where there was some delay because of obstructions, and trying to figure out what we can do with some settlement challenges we had, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then we're also working with the contractor on a resequencing of what that tunnel construction is going to look like. So as I indicated, this is going to affect all of our construction contract schedules, and we're currently negotiating that right now. A lot of folks are asking me, when are you going to be done? What's your schedule? All I can tell you right now is we are not revenue service 2023, and we're working on our schedule very aggressively. It's you can imagine, it's a lot of negotiations. We're essentially at the table just about every day, talking with our contractors about getting new milestone dates on the schedules, and also there's going to be some costs associated with that, because as you can imagine, if the contractor is planning on doing work for a year, which isn't going to happen, and then now they have to extend that for another year, there's going to be some escalation costs. There's going to be costs to cover their staffing for that extra time. So we have to plow through those grounds. Maybe next slide there. Okay, so this just depicts that quarter protection wall, just a graphical. I just wanted to look at the lower part there to give you an appreciation of how this is integral to the civil construction. We actually did look at an option of trying to maybe just having a separate contractor do that quarter protection wall, given the challenges we were having with our contractor to get to a negotiated scope and price. But as you can see, it's really part of the system, if you will. It acts as a retaining wall in many locations along this area. So that was not possible. So we had to kind of plow the ground to do a sole source change order with them. Any questions on the quarter protection wall? We have talked about that quite a bit in the past, but maybe I'll pause there if there are any questions on the wall itself.
Are all the entitlements for the wall complete?
In terms of entitlements, could you explain what your maybe
Do you have approvals from all the cities that you're working in with that wall to build the wall?
Yes, we actually had that done. Really, the only approval we had to go through environmental review, which is the big thing. It's a historic freight corridor, if you will, believe it or not. So we had to follow certain regulations and guidelines to make sure we had it well vetted. And we did all that. That was the piece that had to be done before we could actually put this into the project. And really the approval was through BNSF, but we also had, as part of our agreement with BNSF, they asked that MnDOT oversee and approve our design as well. And so they have done that as well. We don't have to have necessarily approval from the city or the county in this case, other than the county being a funding partner. We have to coordinate that with them. So that was all done some time ago. So any other questions on the wall itself? All right, so the secant pile wall. This is the depiction of where the Kenilworth Tunnel is located, and in the dark, that almost black line there is the about half-mile stretch of the Kenilworth Tunnel. And if you haven't been out on the site or even looking at this, you should get an opportunity. We're actually, Sophia, I don't know if we still have placeholders open, but we're doing a tour for CMC members on the 20th of this month, actually Friday. It's worthwhile just even poking around and take a look at this, because it's pretty illustrative of the challenges we have building this tunnel in a very, very tight confined area. We don't have a lot of access. We're not allowed to be on park board roadways, for example, and so it's really just having to get access from both ends of the tunnel, although we have negotiated with the city to access from Sunset here once we get underway with the grouting and the secant wall. But in this case, we encountered some settlement as we were pressing the sheets in last year, and that caused some concern. And I've talked about how this tunnel goes right next to a 10-story condominium building and a parking ramp, and those are really kind of inches away from the supportive excavation that we're putting in for the sheet pile to build the tunnel. And because of that settlement, we had to really take a pause and take a look to see what alternatives we could have, because we didn't want to cause any damage to those buildings. The 10-story building is actually on a big ring foundation, so we didn't really see that was going to be jeopardized from this. But the parking ramp had it's got about 15 spread footings along the alignment, and we saw that there could be some damage possibly with some settlement we're seeing elsewhere as we're putting in the sheets. So we had to come up with an alternative method of the supportive excavation, and thus a secant wall. And so in the area in blue, it's about a 500-foot section that we have to do a secant application here. So what this does, it really disrupts the contractor and how they were going to get this tunnel built. They're planning on building part of it, going from the middle, going out east and going out west, and they're really limited from going out west with this secant now having to be done. We spent probably over just about a year, because I was talking about this last year about this time about what we could do for alternatives. So we've been working very aggressively with the contractor and our designer to come up with a constructible method for this secant wall, and we're negotiating a price, and so we're finally there to get that done. So this kind of shows you what it looks like. On to the left is what the original plan was, where we have sheets on both sides, and what we have planned now for that 500-foot section is to do a secant pile wall, and you can see the cross sections, or the plan view down below, the difference between the two. Secant wall is going to be much more robust, but it's also much more expensive. It's going to take us about 10 months to get this secant wall put in place, so it's more time consuming as well. And if you can see in the next slide, the tunnel itself doesn't really change, and it's really just that supportive excavation with either the sheets or the secant wall that will be in place. So here's an example of what that looks like. Essentially, it's a series of drilled columns that are filled with concrete. Every other one has a steel beam placed inside it. Any questions on the secant wall, or?
This is Dwayne. My only question is, what is secant a particular name for the construction type or the wall type? Is that?
Yes, it is. It's kind of it's just a name of the type of wall, because essentially it's they also have tangent piles that are kind of touching each other. Not necessarily. These are actually cut into the next pile. So essentially creates a wall of concrete, if you will. And so it's not a proprietary name. Secant walls are used. It's a common construction method. There's a parking ramp just in Uptown that had them. You use them downtown at Westminster Presbyterian Church, I know. So it's a common method. But,
And is that a better method than just building a concrete wall?
Well, it's what we have to do is we have to build something to support the soil and the buildings outside of the excavation. So what this does, it serves that purpose. So we essentially, what's called supportive excavation. We need to put something in place in the ground before we start digging, because if we don't have anything to brace the opening, then things are going to start coming in on the excavation. So this is what this serves. You kind of get an idea in this image in the lower right there, where there have struts. Those members kind of going in and out of the picture. Those are essentially braced against the other side. There's probably secants in the foreground here, where you can't see, that's braced again. So you essentially, if you go back to that cross section real quick, one more before that, you can kind of see these members that go across. Those are called struts that essentially hold the excavation in place, hold the walls up, if you will, while the contractor's building inside. Essentially, you want to build a cell that you can build the tunnel, and these cells are about 100 feet in length, and you can imagine that we're about halfway into the groundwater, about halfway up. So we got to make sure that everything's really secure before you start digging down to the bottom.
Thank you.
All right, so because of those issues, we are delayed, and as I indicate, we are going to continue working with our contractors to come up with a schedule. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have clarity on what our schedule is going to be looking like. But one of the challenges we're going to have is out west, we're going to have a lot of built up structure that's not ready to go yet because of the tunnel and the quarter protection wall. And so we are looking at ways to mitigate our revenue service delay by possibly maybe doing some testing out west before we have the whole line open, so we could be kind of work out the bugs on things. But that's something we're still working out with our systems contractor and our integration team. All right. Any questions on all that? Okay, I think in the interest of time, we took a drone video, and we'll have a link there that you can access at your leisure. It's about 8 minutes, but it does show you a lot of areas of the constructed environment along the alignment. So James, we'll just start from the west and move eastward. So Southwest Station, this is a 450 stall ramp that we're marrying up to the 900 plus stall ramp that Southwest Transit owns. And essentially at the bottom level, this is where the train, the LRT station is going to be. The bus will be pulling up kind of where those James' cursor is. And we have a waiting area in the kind of the background there where James has his cursor. So that's coming along pretty well. A lot of piles here. I think there's enough piles to put them end on end to take you up to St. Cloud. So very soft ground. A lot of challenges here. So utilities, we have even some of where the buses are going to be staging, that's all on piles. We do what's called the load transfer platform, which is a series of piles that's and over that is a geogrid with soil that stabilizes, provides a stable area for to avoid that settlement challenges we have on this site here. Next slide. So Prairie Center Drive Bridge is right next to Southwest Station there. Contractors starting to put in the kind of the foundation for the tracks here. These are called plinths, those concrete pieces, and contractors will start putting in rail up here very soon. Next slide. Valley View Road Bridge, see a little artwork that the city of Eden Prairie paid for. So kind of a nice artwork there. 9 Mile Creek Bridge. Next slide. This is a pretty big bridge. Those steel beams are about 10 feet high, about 150 feet in length. It was quite an endeavor to get those up from Gary, Indiana. Those were put in place. We had about a 5-6 day closure with MnDOT over 212, and pretty interesting to see them install these curved girders here. It's quite an art to see all the workers in place. You have 2 cranes on each end. You have a whole bunch of workers. They're all bolted together. They got to make sure that they bolt them in such a way they don't create unnecessary moments between the beam members. It's quite an interesting operation to watch. Next slide. This gets us towards the 62 tunnel. 62 tunnel is essentially now all constructed as far as the concrete, and we have a lot of retaining walls leading out to the west and also into Opus, which you can see in the background there. This is just north of the Opus area where we have Smetana and Felter Road bridges. This is the Smetana bridge that'll be open here. James, I think that's going to be open later this fall. Okay.
October. We're
Okay,
planning
October.
on October sometime. Yep.
All right. So essentially the LRT is down where that equipment is, where that crane, the LRT will be running at that grade going under the roadway bridges. Next slide, please. This is one of our longer bridges, about 3,000 feet. You can see it, the piers. We're going to be going over the railroad, the Bass Lake Spur, and off in the distance is where that Smetana roadway bridge is locating. Barely kind of see the concrete there. That has been a very extreme challenge building. There are a lot of challenging utilities up through there. Property owner is very interested in our work. They have a camera on us on a daily basis, and we're in touch with them just about every day on our construction activities. Okay, Shady Oak Station. We have about 11 stations that are either almost complete or just getting started with construction. Next slide, please. So this is the first track for LRT that had actually been placed. Kind of exciting. We did a little posting on that last week, and this is from downtown Hopkins over to about 11th, and just short of 11th, where we have track in place now, about 1,300 feet or so. If you haven't been in
Exciting
Hopkins,
news,
and
Jim. Congratulations.
well, thank you. You know, it may be kind of like, you know, what's the big deal, but it's really significant to finally get some LRT track in place. That's a huge milestone for us, to really kind of symbolic, just kind of tell folks that we are really here, because we honestly we still have folks out there that you know, why are you building this thing? And you know, why don't you just stop? And you got problems, and we're trucking along. We're going to get this thing done. So that's my story. So if you haven't been in Hopkins along Excelsior, try to come through here. This is a pretty big structure. This is probably the marquee bridge on the project. Concrete box girder bridge that spans about 400 feet over Excelsior and the railroad, and that's moving along pretty well as well. Now we're over in Blake. This is a pedestrian underpass. This had posed to be a lot of challenge for us because in the groundwater it's contaminated. We had a gas line that was really challenging us last year, but we got through all that. So the western part is done, and off in the distance there are building the east section, because we essentially have to keep the roadway in place. Because this is in the groundwater, it's just, you know, it has to be cast in place to make it, get it sealed. So we're going to have water leaking in, but this has been a real challenge to build this little piece here. Off in Louisiana, we've got another area where a lot of soft soils. You can see the freight bridge has been built. The pedestrian bridge is off where you can't see, just off the other side of off to the right. This is in the foreground. This is the abutment for the LRT bridge as we come down along Oxford for our station, and so that LRT bridge is getting underway there. Further over in Beltline in St. Louis Park, this is the pedestrian bridge that we have in place. If you haven't get a chance to go out and see it, it's a pretty cool looking bridge. The station is starting to get some work done off to the right there. You can't see it in this image, but they're starting to get that work. Off to the left is a developer is going to be building a series of office and I think I'm not sure if there's going to be housing there, but we have about a 268 stall parking in a ramp that's going to be built there, where we have an agreement with the city of St. Louis Park to get that done. Okay, now to the tunnel. So this is that first cell, and this gives you an appreciation of what the tunnel looks like. So off to the sides are the sheets, and you can see there's some members going along the side of the sheets. Those are called whalers, and between those you see the tubes going across. Those are called struts. So that essentially keeps the excavation stable, so the contractor can build the tunnel inside that. And what you see there down below is they've placed the leveling slab. Underneath that is what we call a tremie seal. It's about I think in this case it's about 5 feet thick, and that's essentially to provide enough ballast so it's not going to float on them during construction. And so a leveling slab, and then eventually they'll be able to build the tunnel inside that. And the tunnel will be sealed. It'll be essentially kind of a burrito with membrane, a membrane going around the outside of the tunnel itself, on the bottom, the sides, and the top. Then on top will be the trail eventually. This is the Cedar Lake channel between Cedar Lake and Lake of the Isles. Kind of hard to tell, but off the right, we built a new freight bridge, took the existing freight bridge out, which was located right here where this construction is for the LRT bridge that's underway. And eventually we'll be building a pedestrian bridge once we take the existing bridge out of play. And 21st Street Station is coming along pretty well. And then this is the first semblance of the quarter protection wall. It may not seem like a lot, but boy, this is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears getting this thing in place. And there's over 400 drilled shafts to support this. Off in the distance is the BNSF freight tracks, and so that work is getting well underway. And I think this is another challenging area. Glenwood, essentially on the west part, you can see the retaining walls in place. The abutment is in place. We're now working on the east side of that area. We'll essentially have two roadway bridges and an LRT bridge where you can see these piers coming up. Will essentially be up at the Royalston area at grade. But essentially, the LRT will be passing over Glenwood at grade. So 3 bridges, LRT bridge in the middle, 2 roadway bridges on the sides. And this has been a very challenging area because it's very, very limited space to work. I would say that we've been working pretty well with BNSF. They've been pretty accommodating. We've had some challenges with flagging availability, but for the most part, it's been going pretty well. And toward the end, this gets us up towards Target Station. This is just near our Haywood facility where we have a bus garage, and you see the pier work there going over 7th. I think that's it for that. Got a quick video we want to show you. It's kind of cool to watch this in action. This is a traction power substation. This was actually provided by the systems contractor. We are expanding the Franklin facility to accommodate the 27 vehicles that we have purchased from Siemens out in Sacramento. So yeah, you can go ahead and start that, James, and I might just talk while this is going on. But you know, it's just kind of giving you appreciation. This is a very small piece of the whole puzzle we're trying to do, but you can see all the folks that are involved in getting this done. It's quite an endeavor. So we had to provide another traction power substation at our Franklin facility because we're adding more vehicles and there's going to be more power demand. So there was concern from the operations side of things that without this, they might be overdoing on the power consumption here. So we agreed to provide this traction power to mitigate that concern. So I'm not sure, James, we know how long this actually took. This is obviously advanced quite a bit, but
I'm not sure. I don't know if Trevor has that answer.
It basically took the day.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact hour, but it starts at the time lapse starts at about 7:30 in the morning.
Okay. If you're interested, we also have a link to our. We have a similar image showing the freight bridge move over Highway 100. That's kind of cool to watch. It's on our website. James, maybe you can provide the link either right now during the meeting or later on. It's just shows how we move the freight rail bridge from the south side and put it in the middle. Kind of cool to see that in action. I think our next image here is just showing some of the work at the Franklin facility. Again, we had to expand the Franklin facility because, as you recall, we had to take the OMF that was originally programmed out in Hopkins out of the program. And so we had to expand this facility. And I would say this is really not something operation wanted to do. This site is extremely tight, and it does constrain their operations, but was really, we're faced with some cost challenges, so we had to go this route. But it certainly wasn't a preferred place we wanted to go. So what we've done is built out some west runner tracks here on the west side of the storage barn that we have at Franklin, and this will accommodate 11 vehicles. But we will be storing vehicles outside where typically we don't like to do that just because of the winter weather conditions. But given where we were with the budget and everything, we had to make some choices like that. So light rail vehicles, we're getting 27 vehicles from Siemens, and we're just about done with all of those vehicles being supplied. So those vehicles will be used in operations on the blue and green line until we're ready to roll on Southwest, and that'll help mitigate some rehab they're doing on their Type 1 fleet that we purchased originally when the Blue Line started back in 2004. I think I just got a couple images showing some work out at the Siemens plant, but things have been going pretty well with that contract. All right, well, kind of a quick overview of activities. I don't know if you have any questions, otherwise I'd hand it over to James.
Hey, Jim, just a quick question on the cars. So you're saying that the original purchase cars, those are being upgraded to the current standard with the new cars that are being purchased?
Well, there's what the original cars, they're just kind of they're going through an overhaul because if you can imagine all the salts and just the wear and tear, essentially have to strip it all down and almost kind of rebuild those vehicles. And so it's a pretty extensive overhaul program they have. That's just normal maintenance they'll have to do.
Okay, and then are the new cars though, do they have any new technology, or how does that, we span, I don't know how many years here from the original line to the current line? It just seems like technology or something has changed and improved, and comfort or whatever. I don't know.
Sure.
Has there been much change between?
Well, there have been some changes. They're lighter weight, so that's a plus. We also did some modifications inside to make them more accessible. We had to reduce a few number of seats there, but essentially you can now take a wheelchair all the way down through the length of the car, where on our existing Type 1 and Type 2 fleets, you couldn't do that because the middle car had some seat configuration where it wasn't allowed. So that was probably the big thing. We worked with our accessibility advisory committee to do that. And other thing, I think we've implemented this now. I think we have this on the second type, but the cameras rather than mirrors, so the operator can see behind them. Trying to think what else. There's been a lot of other upgrade modifications with the technical stuff, but I don't know if I necessarily have that at the tip of my tongue.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. If there aren't any more questions at the moment, we'll continue on with community engagement. It's been a busy year for outreach. I'm sure most of you receive our weekly construction update every Friday in your box, or Saturday as the case might be. We have over 17,000 subscribers. It seems to be very popular. It keeps people informed every week of upcoming work throughout the corridor. So in any particular area of the corridor they might be interested in, or they work in, or drive through, they're able to remain updated in terms of construction, traffic, maintenance of traffic. It also includes some really great videos. For instance, the virtual flyover, here the drone footage. We have some great interactive videos on trails, and we just keep people generally updated. It's been very popular. We have also been busy with tours. We have our normal stakeholder visits. Each of our coordinators obviously is very involved with stakeholders in our areas probably on a daily basis, either through email or in person. But in addition, we initiated, as Sophia indicated earlier, some public walking tours. So we've had one in every city, and we started in June in the first iteration. We have the second iteration going on right now. I've got a couple, in fact, this afternoon in Hopkins and St. Louis Park, and then we will be doing some in Opus and Eden Prairie. And then they've been very popular, and as long as they continue to be popular, we'll continue to have these tours into the fall, and we'll have another iteration sometime probably in September, October. So this is we're also continuing to do tours for different agencies and obviously different community organizations. This was a Three Rivers Park District tour in May. You can see the group going under Blake Road. This was an APWA corridor tour, and getting back to that Excelsior Bridge, you can see from the other side. The drone shows you an aerial version, and this is from below. You can see how impressive that bridge is. That was recently in August. That was a great tour. And then in addition to that, we have our normal outreach events, especially in the summertime in each of the cities. And of course, we continue to be active in social media as well. Does anybody have any questions about public involvement? If not, then I will hand it over to Will or Dan. And that concludes the PowerPoint.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks, Jim. As it relates to outreach, any questions that people have from your kind of circles and corporate communities? Is there enough communication going on, or is there anything we could be doing differently? I think the updates every Friday are spectacular and well appreciated. What
This is
questions?
Dwayne. I just had one question. With the Minnehaha Creek Bridge over Louisiana Avenue being built, and then the light rail going over Louisiana, perpendicular. I'm just curious, is there a lot of coordination going on between those two projects? Because it's right at the entryway to the west entryway to Methodist Hospital, and there's a lot of construction there. It doesn't seem to have impacted. I haven't heard about ambulances or others having problems getting in. So I'm just curious how the coordination is going between those projects.
Yeah, Sophia, I don't know if you want to pick that up, but we have been coordinating quite a bit. Any other projects out there, we're coordinating with the other entity cities typically. I mean, I know with the Louisiana, with that bridge out, we've been trying to make sure that we're not causing too much harm. We had to close Louisiana for a little bit to do some work, but I'm glad to hear that it wasn't really too impactful for you guys. I know it's kind of tough to get in and out with all the stuff we're doing. But yeah, we're constantly coordinating with cities on what work they're doing. Eden Prairie has had a lot of work, Minnetonka quite a bit, and St. Louis Park, Minneapolis as well.
Thank you.
I would.
Maybe if I could add. Maybe if I could add, the cities are actually at our weekly construction updates. So we, meeting with the contractor to make sure that everybody's dialed into what kind of activity is going to be taking place over the next week and next 3 weeks. So sorry, Dave.
No, I was just going to extend a compliment. I think given the complexity of everything that's going on here and how broadly this expands across the various cities, I think your team's done an exceptional job. It's been very, very quiet, at least on the west side. As from our corporate perspective, I'm hearing, hardly any noise at all. And when you think about the amount of work that's being done or has been being done over the past, couple years, 18 months, it's impressive. So I think everything that you're putting in place as outreach and making sure communities are up to speed with what's happening here, I think it's worked out quite well.
Well, thank you for that, Dave.
What questions do you have for Team Southwest?
Hey, Jim.
I can chime in. I'm wondering what the current status is of the budget, and where do you think it's going, and where does the money come from for any excess budget problem?
Sure, Kurt, I'm glad you asked that because I did want to touch base on that. So you probably saw in the news that the county did essentially release the 10% that they were required to do. We had to have that in place to get the full funding grant agreement from FTA, and so it came time where we needed to do that. We were at the time we were about 51 million left in our contingency bucket, if you will, and so we saw that with the CCANT change order, which is just under $30 million, so it's pretty expensive. One of the reasons why we didn't look at doing CCANT along the whole length, doing the sheets instead. But so that's going to take up most of that. So the county has released another 10% or 200.3 million to the project, which will go into our contingency fund, if you will, and we'll be using that to deal with these challenges we have, and as well as other change orders. At this juncture, I can't tell you if we're going to need more or not. as something we're going to be working very closely with, understanding for their contractors, but we know that we're working very closely with Hennepin County and FTA. And if we do need to have more funding that comes into the project, be conversation with those two entities to see where we can go with it, with if more funds are needed. So it's just really kind of a complex. Right now, I've got. I'm involved in some pretty heavy conversations with our civil contractor to come up with a schedule and a cost associated with that. And we're starting to have this conversation with our systems contractor as well. We have some experts that that actually the same folks that are working for MnDOT, a guy named Ken Roberts with Venable, and a group called Troner. That both of those entities were involved in the St. Croix project for MnDOT and Wisconsin DOT. And I see that they have a lot of national experience on mega projects, and that's why we pulled them in. And so they're helping us with this negotiation process we have with our contractors. So it's kind of have to be stay tuned as we get more information. And it's kind of one of those things where we don't want to come out with a number that's just extremely gargantuan that we may not be there. We want to come out with something that we have comfort of what that number is going to be, what that date's going to be. So we've been really cautious on trying to maybe limit on speculation on what things are going to be. I know that's caused some frustration out in the arena, saying, what are you doing? Well, we are working on it. It's just taking longer than I had hoped, but we are making progress. I'll just tell you that as opposed to places like Maryland that I don't know if you follow on a national level where they don't have a contractor and they're actually procuring new contractors to get back on board. We are talking to the contractor. We're having productive conversations. They are being cooperative. I would say they probably want a little more money than we would anticipate, so that's something we have to work out. And but I see that we'll get an end to this, but it's just going to take some time.
Thanks for joining, Tony. Thanks for that question and answer. What other questions do people have?
I was going to kind of probe into the questions on budget and schedule. So Jim, you eloquently addressed the budget related status. If I understood you properly earlier in the call, you mentioned that you're certain that you're not going to see operations of the line in 23. Did I hear you properly? So we're
Yes,
now somewhere in 24 or beyond, and you're not able to commit yet to a particular schedule.
That's correct, Dave. 23
Okay.
is just really out of the picture, and we're trying to figure out what that date is. And again, it's kind of a we're trying to mitigate things as much as possible. So we know that integration testing is going to have some problems. It's just standard. We've gone through this on the other two lines, and so if we can get ahead of the game and do some testing on maybe some of the western parts, because that construction is going much more advanced compared to where we have things in the east right now, that could help us try to rein in that revenue service. So those things are being discussed with our contractors to see how we can do that. We may have to pay a premium to essentially do testing, because right now the program was to do the whole line tested, all at once, and now we'd be phasing that. So there's going to be additional costs with that. So we have to understand what that is going to be implying. But anytime you're talking about the cost of time, and longer we have contractors out there, the longer we have revenue service, the more costs are going to be, because we have to pay for force account, we have to pay for consultants, and not only, so it's just a whole bundle of things we need to consider as we're looking at this situation.
All right, thank you.
Jim,
Yeah,
I
go
have
for
a
it, Jim.
question regarding the Franklin storage facility and maintenance facility. You mentioned that the additional cars are going to be stored outside. Excuse me. And I wonder if there's a way to try to work that back into the budget to try to get some sort of protective cover or barrier or something. It seems like a big investment for this entire line, and then to have to store some of those cars outside, given our climate, that is going to cause additional wear and tear on some of those vehicles. And I think that if it hasn't been looked at, maybe it should be revisited to even put some sort of type of light gauge metal shed roof type of protective barrier over those cars or something to protect them from all the snow and weather conditions that we have here. And I just wonder if there's been any discussion about that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. And it is something we are talking about. We're actually also looking at, we have some additional space over in the end of Central Quarter, the Green Line, that might be a potential for another shed. Don't know if that's really gonna amount to anything or not, but it is something that Metro Transit is looking at. For this project itself, I don't foresee that we'd be adding anything in terms of scope. There's already a lot of sensitivity to add more to this project, and so we've been really not doing that. And so I just say, be frank with you, the appetite of adding more scope probably is not there at this juncture. And I think it's something we'll be looking at from an operations perspective and working with our funding partner, Hannah County, on that as well in terms of what we can do long term.
So maybe a broader question for everybody. The Quarter Management Committee, again, the group that oversees this project, is getting together on September 1st. Any questions or feedback, comments that you think are appropriate and important to share with the Quarter Management Committee in a couple of weeks? Okay, great. I think the last agenda topic is trying to identify, again, just validate a cadence of when we get together. I think my thought, Dan's thought, and Team Southwest was maybe a quarterly cadence. Does that seem to make sense for everybody, or anyone think differently?
How long has it been since our last meeting? Do you recall?
Yeah, our last meeting was on December 11th, 2019. Almost 2 years.
Yeah. And so have you, are you getting the value out of these discussions? I'm wondering if quarterly is too frequent and whether semi-annual would make more sense. I like the update. This is great to get a sense of what's going on and some of the challenges you're facing was very helpful. But perhaps given where you're at, quarterly might be a little bit too frequent. Yeah. I don't know, other thoughts?
Well, I can just put out that, working with our chair, Charlie Zelli, we had made the determination earlier this year that, we hadn't been meeting with CMC so much, and we thought we better get that ramped up. So we're going to go to quarterly with them. And with COVID, it's been a challenge for everybody and just trying to fit stuff in. But we do value your guys' input as we navigate this, and we'll be happy to accommodate quarterly or semi-annually, whatever you guys want to land on.
Well, do you want to start at quarterly and maybe just have just a shorter touch point, maybe just to cover the kind of what's fresh and not belabor it, and go maybe manage it that way. And if we find that it's just not of benefit, we can always scale it back.
Yeah, I guess the question for me is literally more grounds continues to get turned over and things added, rails, etc. If that sparks more interest because of things happening in your respective backyards, we could certainly, I'm not a fan of having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. So I was trying to be intentional with the progress as well as with the Quarter Management Committee coming up, that it'd be good to at least let them know that we kind of reconvened as well. So why don't we play that one by ear, Dave? Mm-hmm. Whether 3 months out or 6 months out, maybe more dependent on updates and progress as appropriate. That'd be important for this group. How does that sound?
Great.
So for Jim, James, Sophia, any questions we can help answer, or any other perspectives that you think important for us to hear about?
I think we'll just,
How-
we're noting that we'll check in with the chairs kind of on a quarterly basis just to kind of see what's in the ether and desire to talk about, and whether we meet or not, I guess can depend on kind of the project announcements that we have as we get to completion things and major milestones or updates and whatnot, and go from there. And you know, even if we're not meeting, you know where to reach our outreach coordinators. And you know, the COVID world's making it so that we can't be out and about as much, but you know, just kind of want to continue to extend the invitation as this project gets moving. If you do want us to come and meet with employees or whatever, just that is always an option to reach out to us.
Great, perfect. Dan, anything else you have?
No, I think that sounds good. I think we'll just kind of, like you say, play by ear and just meet as we need to. I think that you're in a phase of the construction right now where there's a lot happening, but it's not all happening very quickly because there's a lot of work to be done in building these tunnels and seawalls and everything. So I think that as things change and there's you know, some more significant updates that you think we should be aware of, that would probably be the time to try to reconvene then. So
Great. All right. Well, appreciate everyone's time this morning. Thanks for joining. I know it's mid-August right now, so I hope everyone enjoys the upcoming weeks. All the best with kids going back to school, and appreciate everyone's time today.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Will.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Everyone.
Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Meeting adjourned.
bye.